Individuals with Disabilities Education Act versus Section 504, empowering families to advocate effectively. What is the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, the IDEA? It's a federal law that supports special education by ensuring students aged 3 through 21 have the right to a free appropriate public education, a FAPE, and ensuring students learn in the typical classroom or least restrictive environment, LRE, as much as possible. What is Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act? It's a federal law ensuring children and adults have the right to equal access to education, employment, health care, and community services, and applies to any entity, organization, or agency that receives federal funding. Time spans of protections. Under the IDEA, a child is covered from birth to 3 years old, from 3 years old to the end of schooling, which could be the end of school when one exits from school, graduates with a regular diploma, or ages out at 21 years old. Under Section 504, an individual is protected throughout their lifetime. When should schools consider evaluating a student? Under the IDEA, if staff suspects a student has been diagnosed with a disabling condition, and under Section 504, if a student returns to school after a serious illness or exhibits a chronic health condition or is diagnosed with a disabling condition. What is the definition of disability? Under the IDEA, in order to be determined a student with a disability that is eligible under IDEA for services, the student must be found to be eligible under one of 13 disability categories: autism, deaf-blindness, deafness, emotional disturbance, hearing impairment, intellectual disability, multiple disabilities, orthopedic or other health impairment, specific learning disability, speech or language impairment, traumatic brain injury, visual impairment including blindness, or developmental delay for ages 3 through 8. Under Section 504, in order for a student to be protected under that law, they must be determined to have a physical or mental impairment that substantially limits a major life activity, including breathing, walking, reading, and talking. They must have a record of that impairment or be regarded as having an impairment. Specialized versus comparable. Under the IDEA, students are placed in the least restrictive environment to the maximum extent possible with appropriate supports and received specialized instruction. Under Section 504, students are to receive services comparable to those provided to students without disabilities. Under both laws, students eligible under IDEA will almost always enjoy protection under 504, but students eligible under 504 do not always qualify for protection under the more narrow categories listed under the IDEA. District obligations for IDEA and Section 504. Under Child Fine, schools are required to locate, identify, examine, and notify students with disabilities and their families of district obligations. The child find process for 504 and IDEA includes a referral of the child for an evaluation of the child, and an eligibility meeting to review the evaluations and determine eligibility and see if that student qualifies for a free and appropriate public education if eligible. Notification under the IDEA and Section 504. A school must provide notice in writing to the parent or guardian of an intent to evaluate a child. Once the parent receives notice of that intent, the parent must then provide written consent in order for the school to provide the evaluation. IDEA evaluation. A child is assessed in all areas related to the suspected disability under the IDEA, which could include cognitive, communicative, educational, social or emotional, physical health or motor development, and vision and hearing screening. Section 504 evaluation. Under Section 504, evaluations should accurately and completely assess the nature and extent of the disability. There should be a review of private medical, psychiatric records, private evaluations, school records, including discipline, attendance, and teacher observations. It can also include comprehensive testing. What is the plan? District staff is obligated to provide the services, accommodations, and/or modifications described within the document. What does a plan entail under the IDEA versus Section 504? Under the IDEA, the plan is implemented through an individualized education program, an IEP. The IEP team must determine if the student remains eligible for special education services every 3 years. Under Section 504, plan and services are reviewed periodically. Changes are documented, and if the plan is to be terminated, parents are notified and documentation is provided. Under both IDEA and Section 504, copies of the IEP or 504 plan are provided to the parent and appropriate school and district staff. Implementation of the plan. Under the IDEA, the plan is implemented under the IEP. This includes special education and related services in the least restrictive environment and includes goals to be measured. Under Section 504, the plan includes services and supplementary aids. Both include accommodations, modifications, and define the offer of a free appropriate public education. What are accommodations? Changes in how a student accesses and demonstrates learning, for example, extended testing time, preferential seating, assistive technology. What are modifications? Changes in what a student is expected to learn and demonstrate. For example, changes in instructional level, content, and performance criteria. Free appropriate public education. Under the IDEA, special education and related services that are provided at public expense without charge that meet the standards of the state education agency and are provided in conformity with the IEP provide a free appropriate public education. Under Section 504, the right to access education equally to that of a non-disabled student, to be educated with students without disabilities to the maximum extent appropriate with the use of supplementary aids and services, and to have the school district make accommodations to allow the student an opportunity to participate in school-related activities is the provision of free appropriate public education under Section 504. Resolution. Formal procedures under IDEA and Section 504. Under the IDEA, resolution can include an IEP facilitation through the State Department, mediation, also requested through the State Department of Education, filing a state complaint through the State Department of Education, or filing a due process complaint, which is also managed through the State Department of Education but goes through the Office of Administrative Courts. Under Section 504, you can engage in mediation. You could file a grievance with the school district. You can request an impartial hearing from your school district, or you can file a complaint with the Office for Civil Rights at the United States Department of Education. Learn more at advocacydenver.org. Thank you.